Catering Circle. In partnership with Purple Eye Technologies, in association with Meridian Grand and sponsored by MR Printers, RCI, Regency Events, iTech Boss, Prestige and DineNet.
Assalamu alaikum and welcome to the Catering Circle. I'm Nadia Ali, back on your screens today, and it gives me great pleasure to be with you for the next hour and a half, talking all things about restaurants and how we can help your business and how we can help the community. And of course, as always, I have some great guests with me here and over the internet, but I will introduce them a bit later on. Let's take a look at today's topic.
Health safety and food safety issues. Restaurants need to adapt changes post-COVID, take appropriate safety measures and follow government compliance. Risk assessment. Have you carried out a COVID-19 risk assessment in your premises? Are the following key controls included? Taking orders and delivering or collection of food, hand washing, cleaning and hygiene procedures, communication between all parties to ensure safe working, reducing risk for customers and visitors, maintaining social distancing, following government guidance on staying alert and safe. Do you remind staff daily not to work if they have symptoms of coronavirus or anyone in their household is symptomatic? Are arrangements and materials available to regularly clean and disinfect objects and surfaces touched regularly, tools, equipment, hand contact points, etc.? Do you have a sufficient supply of cleaning materials? Allergens. Have you adapted to new allergen labelling laws? Are you following the FSA guidance? Do you provide allergy information at the time of ordering online or over the phone? Do you clearly mark any food delivered with allergen information? Food hygiene in your business. Are you maintaining the safe handling of food following the SFBB folder? 4 C's of food hygiene: cleaning, cooking, chilling and cross-contamination. Appropriate supervision and training in food hygiene. Management. Did you check if your business is compliant with allergen and hygiene requirements for distance selling? Has the cleaning schedule been followed, signed and dated? Have the startup and closing checks been completed? Has this been signed and dated using SFBB? Deliveries to homes. Do you minimize contact during deliveries? For example, phone to notify arrival rather than use of doorbell, electronic payment and documentation. Are deliveries made with just one person in the car?
It's all about health and safety and food safety issues right here on Channel S today on the Catering Circle. And to help us discuss this further and to enlighten us on how we can keep our businesses going and help our businesses, I have some great guests with me today. So first of all, on my left, I have MD Abdul Haq, Vice Chairman of the Channel S Television, IT Specialist, as we know, for Purple Eye, and of course the man behind the whole Catering Circle. So thank you very much for joining us. How are you today?
I'm fine, thank you, Nadia.
And what do you have to say about this issue today?
Well, it's a huge subject to cover today. Health and safety always been major issues with our industry, especially curry industries. We had so many stories. We had people, a customer died through allergens, loss of claim, insurance claim. We go today hearing that a lot of customers now claiming bogus insurance. You got the government keep on changing the rules. Now the Natasha Lok effective
I'll come back
today.
to you in a bit.
So it's a lot to cover
today. It's a lot to cover, and I was hoping for a really quick intro, but you know what? I'll introduce my guests, and then we'll talk in depth about it. But thank you very much for giving us an intro into today's topic. And of course, next to you, I have none other than Abdul Haq Habib, Managing Director of London Training Centre, and has over 15 years of experience when it comes to training and consultancy and anything to do with customer service. This is the man you need to go to. So thank you very much for joining us today.
It's a pleasure, thank you.
And on my right, I have Vince Kelly, Senior Chief Lecturer for Culinary Arts, forgive me, for Culinary Arts at Westminster Kingsway College, London.
Yeah. How you doing?
And of course, you've co-written a degree in culinary health and nutrition, and it's great to have you here today because we'll definitely get to know what we really need to think about when it comes to health and safety, and especially about food, nutrition, and food safety. So thank you very much for joining us, and we're really lucky to have you and your specialism. And right next to you, we have Tawazzul Mia, Executive Member of the Catering Circle, winner of Catering Circle Season 2, Restaurant Talent Show 2017, and the Secretary of BBCA. So thank you very much for joining us today.
What a pleasure to be here.
Thank you very much. And also, may I add, when I'm not here sometimes, my co-host for the Catering Circle. So thank you very much for joining us today.
It's always a pleasure.
And we also have a guest on Zoom. Hopefully, if we've got David Knight. I don't know if he's going to come on the screen now, but David Knight is a fire safety inspector based in Portsmouth and covers the surrounding area. Thank you for joining us, David.
Good evening. Yes, thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm going to come to you in a minute and we're going to talk in depth. But before that, let's take a look at today's first segment. Thank you so much for that. It's all about today's topic, which is about adapting changes post-COVID. And I think this is something that many restaurants are adapting to now. And it's definitely a very, very big topic. So I'm going to start with you now. Thank you very much, because you already introduced today's show. And tell me, how important is it for everyone to adapt to the changes post-COVID?
As I always said, business is business. You got to run it properly. There is no shortcut. There is no halfway house. You have to do it properly. Over the time, if you try to do halfway house, you'll pay much more money in terms of fines and issues and so on. So today's subject, health and safety, is very important. We have, in the industry facing a lot of challenges, including the government policy change. Now it's a little bit settled as far as COVID concerned. Hopefully we won't get the passport checking for vaccination. But we still have other issues, like, as we quickly mentioned, from October, which is this month, 1st of October, Natasha Law came effective, so which means the menu has to be spot on. Describing the allergens. A lot of the restaurants, they have ingredients that got nuts and other things in it, but it's never mentioned anywhere. And they got to get those things right. I know you find a bit cheaper mixed curry, mixed ingredient, but if you're running your business, either run it properly or don't run it at all.
Thank you. Okay. And that actually takes me perfectly into asking Vince this question. Tell us a bit about this Natasha Law, and how do businesses actually adapt to this? What do they need to do?
Yeah, I don't think that it's a very serious thing, obviously, and I'm so glad it has been brought in, to be fair. I think it was always needed, but we've always been doing it anyway. I do think that, we do list all our food allergies on our menus, on our menu cards, if you like, as well. And then what this is about labelling properly what the food that is produced and pre-packaged within the place where you are. So if it's on them premises and you're packaging again to sell it there, anything that's gone into a package on the premises also needs to be labelled. Anything that was coming in packaged in a deli or whatever was already bought in and already labelled anyhow. Anything on a menu is labelled anyhow, what I would hope so is already labelled. What Natasha's Law about is it's about anything that we produce and we repackage and we put it for sale within them premises, then it has to be completely allergen listed. At Westminster Kingsway, we do make a lot of our own different things downstairs for our canteens and our realistic work environments and our restaurants, and just the canteen mostly we would sell little desserts and stuff like that. So it's hit us. It's a whole new thing that we've had to implement. But there's some great technology out there to help you as well, to help you label up things properly. So there is some accessible stuff.
Thank you very much. And I will have some more questions on that. Yeah. And of course, anyone at home, if you have any questions, you can also get in touch. All you've got to do is tweet us at Catering Circle. And of course, you can see the details below. You can get in touch, send us your questions, and we will definitely read them out throughout the show. I also have two other special guests on Zoom. So if I could please introduce them. First of all, I have Jan Knight, that is on Zoom. Hi, Jan. Thank you for joining us.
No problem.
And for being a part of today's show. And I know Zoom is the way forward, to be honest, isn't it?
No, I hate it.
Well, look, at least we can have you. I mean, that's all that matters for me. And just to let our viewers know, Jan is the managing director at Square Mile Insurance Services, and you have many years of working with the Asian curry industry. So thank you very much for joining us. I also have Ashraf Mir, finalist Catering Circle Season 4, Restaurant Talent Show in 2019, and also the owner of Cinnamon Spice, and a very young, successful entrepreneur in the catering sector. Thank you very much for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you very much for inviting me. I think just to clarify, I'm just the owner of Menston Spice, I think.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Forgive me. I'm very, very, very sorry. Forgive me. I've been reading the wrong thing. I'll tell you what. I'll read it out again. I'm absolutely sorry. So you are the winner of Season 2. Okay, I've got the wrong information here. Forgive me, Ashraf Mir. But as long as we have you, that's all that matters. So thank you very much for joining us. And honestly, your expertise is exactly what we need today here on the Catering Circle. I'm going to come back to you in a bit, and I'm going to ask you a few questions. But before I come back to you, I'm going to go straight to Mr. Abdul Haq and ask you, Haq Habib, about the government guidelines. Tell us a little bit about the government guidelines that are available for working safely during the pandemic.
Sure. Again, thank you very much. And thank you. Assalamu alaikum, all the viewers. Just to clarify very briefly, here are two topics, health and safety and food safety. Just to avoid any misunderstanding, when we talk about health and safety, what we are talking about here is to do with any illnesses or diseases that we might develop from the workplace. So it can be a virus, like COVID-19, for example. If I get infected in the workplace from COVID-19, that is to do with health, my health, because I got it from the workplace. That is to do with occupational illness, for example, health. And safety is to do with any accidents and injuries in the workplace. For example, in Scotland, a few weeks ago, in the restaurant, one person was killed by another person within the restaurant. That is to do with safety. So when we talk about health and safety, we are talking about basically these two issues: illnesses, diseases, health, and accidents, injuries, and those kind of things are to do with our safety. So huge responsibilities basically on employers to look after on those two sides. When we talk about food safety, basically we are talking about the safety of the food and protecting the food from any kind of contamination, from any types of hazards. And in terms of the COVID-19 and the rules and regulations, the best way, the best advice for me, for the owners and employers and the managers, is to go to food.gov.uk. Because as you said, online world, all the information is there and fantastic. Everything is very, very clear. In a program like this, we cannot provide full information. We can just give the tips, basically. But my kind of comment would be here, go to www.gov.uk and you get all the information very, very nicely, including the risk assessment that your very, very good documentary said earlier in the program. So .gov.uk is the way forward. So two things, health and safety, huge legal responsibilities, and food safety, huge responsibilities. And I'll conclude just by saying this, that to be honest, after the pandemic, or still, we are in the pandemic, but I can say that there isn't much change in the law, to be honest, in terms of health and safety and food safety. It is still very, very similar. So nothing to worry about. All you need to do is go back and just review your current HACCP system, which you have mentioned very nicely in the documentary, Safer Food, Better Business. Just go and review and add a few more things around COVID-19.
Do you think people are getting worried because there hasn't been that much emphasis in the past, as there is now, because of COVID. Do you think this is why everyone's getting a bit worried? But actually, it's what they've been doing anyway.
Absolutely, Nadia. Absolutely spot on. It has always been there.
Yeah.
You know, Food Safety Act, food safety regulations, and especially Safer Food, Better Business risk assessment has always been there. But what I say is a benefit in disguise. In other words, COVID-19 has highlighted the importance of health and safety and food safety, especially in the food premises. And just think about washing hands.
Yeah.
How many times we used to think about before pandemic, the importance of washing hands. But now everyone, including my child, 3 years old, he washes his hands every time, for example. So the importance of washing hand, covering mask, PPE, it has always been there. But COVID-19 has re-emphasized that do it. If you don't,
have to do it. Yeah.
You are vulnerable, you might die, your business might die, you might lose everything. So do it.
Absolutely. There is, absolutely.
Yes.
That takes me nicely into Tafazzul Mia. And actually, firstly, thank you very much. I actually went to a Bailiff restaurant, which is, by the way, beautiful. And there are other restaurants as well, so please do go check them out. But, you know, you being an owner of Bailiff and actually working during these times, tell us a little bit about what you've done for COVID compliance at your workplace.
It's very, very important you follow the guideline. And the government has been providing guideline throughout. And me as a organization secretary of BBCA, we've been giving out information. I mean, I have to go back. It won't be much use to the audience because we don't do much of the things.
Yeah.
But one thing I must stress is the sanitization.
Yeah.
And hand is the most important part, usually passes germs. So during the COVID, we maintained the meter space, track and trace, the temperature check, hand sanitization, and all the rest of the guideline. You know, risk assessment in the kitchen as well as in the front. And we managed it, alhamdulillah. And going forward, I have to say, everything is settling down. And we're in the road to recovery, like our program is saying.
Absolutely.
And we're doing pretty good job. Everybody's up for it. And I think the herd immunity is working for us. You know,
absolutely.
we're sitting here. We never thought of it a year ago like this.
No,
we were doing online everything, but it's getting back to normal. And I agree with Jan there. You know, online is not same meeting people.
But it's the way forward. And actually, I think as long as we can communicate and as long as we have, you know, people all over the world to be a part of our programme. So, Jan, that takes me nicely to you, actually. I'd like to ask you about businesses. Now, do you think any kind of extra cover businesses need to actually take in order to help them through this pandemic?
Well, first of all, there is no cover for the pandemic, as everyone knows. Business interruption claims obviously didn't cover COVID, or 99% of them didn't. Going forward, I honestly don't think COVID cover will be available for at least a year, 2 years. But don't quote me on that, because basically, as I say to other people, when terrorism was removed from your policies, it took a couple of years for Paul Reed to come in and work out the premiums, and that is what's going to happen COVID-wise. But relating to health and safety issues, health and hygiene and everything, as long as you're insured correctly, then there shouldn't be a problem if you have a claim.
Excellent. Thank you very much. And Dave, if I could ask you, I mean, obviously we've just heard from Jan about insurance. Now, if we were to think about risk assessments, what steps do you think restaurants need to take to comply with, like, fire risk assessments?
Okay, well, to start with, if they have more than 5 employees or serve alcohol, they need a written fire risk assessment. Okay. And it's something that most forget. Leading on from that, the other thing most restaurateurs forget is if staff sleep on site, then that risk assessment will point to a fire alarm system that is hardwired to protect their staff. And quite important issues to put in place.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. And lastly, if I could come to Ashraf, Mia, please, and ask you, as you're a restaurateur, I mean, how have you found complying with the COVID compliances? Like, how has it been for you?
Yeah, obviously, COVID hasn't had an impact in terms of all the businesses. I think it's the way in terms of how we work and in terms of how we change and adapt to the COVID regulation. Myself, obviously, being a small business owner, we've still kept certain COVID in terms of the screen protecting our staff, providing hand sanitizers, because the COVID hasn't gone away. We can't say, it's gone away. I think we still have to be vigilant and carry on doing the work, cleaning washing our hands, using sanitizers. And also we're doing contactless deliveries as well. So I think we need to, as businesses, carry on and adapt to the changes and keep up to date with government guidance on these issues as well. And it's given us an opportunity to reflect how our businesses need to operate and change. And I think it's important, as I say, in terms of getting the right cover of insurance, getting electrical certificates, and doing work to improve the premises. So I think it's given us a time to reflect. And I think as a business, we've taken that on board and take on the challenges of COVID. And hopefully it'll be a great way forward for businesses.
Absolutely, fingers crossed. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. And of course, those of you at home watching, don't forget you can also be a part of today's show. All you've got to do is hit us up on social media and send us your messages, anything you like, any questions you like. We have some great guests with us today. We have some amazing panelists here today. So if you have any questions for them, if there's a burning desire, something you really need to know, send them through to us and we will definitely read them out and hopefully answer your questions. And don't forget, you can also download the Catering app. So please do go ahead, download it, and you can watch back all the episodes or anything that you miss. We're going to go on a quick break now. And of course, straight after this, we will still be talking all things about health and safety and food safety issues. See you in a second.
Catering Circle. In partnership with Purple Eye Technologies, in association with Meridian Grand and sponsored by MR Printers, RCI, Regency Events, iTech Boss, Prestige and DineNet.
Welcome back to the Catering Circle, where we are talking about adapting to the changes post-COVID. With me, as you know, I have some amazing guests. I'm going to come straight to Hakbay and ask you about, people are now starting to go back to restaurants, as we know, right? I, for one, am, and, it's a big deal for me to take that big leap into going to a restaurant with my family. Now, how do you think restaurants can gain that trust from customers?
Well, that's a very good question. Firstly, obviously, I travel a lot, go to a lot of restaurants, and one thing I look for is how professional they are, how they communicated with me. So as a customer, they like to see a lot of changes. So I know a lot of the restaurants now, especially Tufajjal Bhai, for example, he communicates with his customers. There are a lot of restaurants, and that's the way forward.
When sometimes you say communicate, how do you? I mean,
you do Facebook. I do a 30-second video of how safely you're running your business. TikTok is one example. TikTok is getting very famous. Send a post on Facebook. We're open. We're doing this kind of stuff. Some people do SMS marketing. Informing the customer that they're open. It's all about getting the confidence, and giving the hope that if they come to their restaurant, they're not going to get infected with virus and, all the other problems they have with health and safety, food poisoning, to anything else. But I think the video things, as you said, really worked, and I think we should. We are on a digital world. Why not do a 30-second video of your customers, how they're, what kind of stuff you're doing in kitchen, at the front of a house, and get the confidence factor. It's all about getting the confidence factor of the customers, and communicate with them. A lot of the restaurants think that without communication they will get the same business as last time. It just doesn't happen, because customers have so many choices now, and they rather go to a restaurant where they can see changes, especially with menu. This is a good opportunity for restaurants to make their menu nice, put the allergens on, the kind of safety nets they put in place, get those things modified. And in fact, when you're changing your menu, a lot of the restaurants are taking advantage of the price changes. I went to a restaurant getting a steak for probably £20, now chanting to 35 pounds, because the cost has increased.
Don't even get me started on prices,
exactly.
honestly.
So the prices has gone up. But this is an opportunity for the restaurant to get their training done, everything else. I know it all costs money, but the only way to get the money is through the menu, and this is a chance to change your menu and get the customer confidence back. And people nowadays go to restaurants for experience. So therefore, if the experience is good, they're happy to pay a bit more for it, and they understand the cost has gone up as well.
Thank you very much. That nicely takes me into our guest that's just joined us on Zoom. Let me get this correct now. Ash Mir, thank you for joining us, winner of Catering Circle Season 2, Restaurant Talent Show 2017, and the correct owner of Cinnamon Spice. Thank you very much for joining us today. And, what Mr. Huq just said, I mean, do you agree to that? Do you think it's really important? The main thing is about getting those customer confidence back is via doing, using social media, when they do come in, making sure that the menu looks attractive, everything around them looks safe. Is that what you're following?
I totally agree with that. I think Hokba has clearly mentioned all the important points of all businesses in hospitality to make sure that all these underlying factors are pretty much covered. So customer satisfaction, they understand that they're a safe environment.
And am I correct in saying, Ash, that you have had 5 stars for nearly 12 years running? I mean, that's pretty impressive. So how, be totally humble about it, please, and tell us how. How are you doing this? What's the top secret?
So, that's correct. So we have been awarded 5 stars for 12 consecutive years. And this year we had the local mayor coming to the restaurant and awarding us with the certificate. First of all, we have to be passionate about food safety. We have to make sure that, these are very important factors, because one mistake can cause death. As we understand that all our staff are trained in the HACCP system. They all undergoing training by professional training bodies. We make sure that all staff have a training every week, like in-house training. And we make sure that we maintain the Safer Food, Better Business and the HACCP system.
Yeah, thank you very much. And talking about hazard systems, Vince, if I could ask you, do premises actually need to do risk assessments? And if they do, what kind of risk assessments do they need to do?
At the end of the day, it's just all about minimising the risk, and health and safety is there for the customers' safety and for the staff's safety. Well, just looking at where the risk comes into it. So you just have to play out how your service will go or your preparations will go, and you'll think about what exactly are the risks, what's the worst case scenario, I guess, and then you score that on a point system from 1 to 5, and that's how you figure out how big your risks are and how to minimise them risks. And then again, like the last gentleman there was saying, was about obviously revisiting things all the time, and not just, doing it once, but making sure that everyone is clear and does understand the procedures.
Yep. And are there anything on the website, government website, that people could actually be directed to that would help them with regards to these risk assessments?
Yeah, I mean, there's plenty on gov.uk, but Safer Food, Better Business, there's the Food Safety Authority, there's loads of different resources out there, and they even give you things that you can download and do your own risk assessments and everything. So it doesn't have to be a big expensive thing. It's just a matter. It is a bit time consuming, definitely, but you know.
But you can actually put one together yourself.
Yeah, you can do it yourself. Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you very much. If I could ask Abdul Haq Habib, now obviously we know you run London Training Centre. Are there any training courses or anything that you know these restaurants could actually do to help them maybe understand this risk assessment better if they don't understand it or if they're not following the current guidelines? Is there anything in place for these restaurants that they could do?
Sure, of course. Here again, just to add one thing about health and safety and food safety, there are 3 types of risk assessment relevant to tonight's topic. So one, health and safety, is about fire. So fire risk assessment. For example, that one risk assessment. Every business has to have a fire risk assessment. Another one is about health and safety risk assessment, and another one is food safety risk assessment. So in other words, we need to make sure that we are covering all these areas. And to cover all these areas, as you said, you know, if you go to that food.gov.uk, there are some very, very good examples there. They're very practical as well. So you can follow those basically, and in your own ways, you can come up with your own risk assessment for your own small businesses. We are not talking about big chains and things. They have to have their own risk assessment. But small to medium-sized businesses, if they follow the government's guideline and those samples risk assessment, they will be fine. In terms of risk assessment for food, for example, if they just follow the Safer Food, Better Business and those 4 C's that your documentary covered, cleaning, cooking, chilling, and cross-contamination, and if they manage it properly, then it is fine. Again, you know, it is very, very simple. So I don't want people to think about risk assessment. My God, it's too complicated. HACCP was invented by NASA scientists back in 1960s. So that can sound very complicated, but daunting, what I'm saying is that very, very simple for our catering businesses to follow. All you need to do is Safer Food, Better Business, 4 C's, and just manage your business nicely. That's it. And keep record, document, basically.
Have everything documented.
Just to make it clear,
Absolutely,
just have it by, is there are professionals out there. Don't try to do everything by yourself. Don't be a Bollywood actor. You know, do everything. Just pay a small fee. It's not very expensive. And, you know, there are so many training centers, and Habib Bhai got one, and there's so many others. Just, you know, get someone professionals to do this.
I'm just going to come back and ask you about the 4 C's that you mentioned. Could you elaborate on that a little bit, about the 4 C's?
Of course. That's safer. The HACCP system, every single business have to follow the food safety management system according to HACCP. HACCP stands for Hazard Analysis and Critical Control Point, which can be sounds quite complicated, but the Government Food Standards Agency made it very, very simple by providing a folder called Safer Food, Better Business. And that folder basically contains 5 things, 4 C's. So you have to maintain cleaning and disinfection for your business, number 1. You have to chilling, in other words, refrigeration, temperature, keeping it cold, for example, refrigerator and freezer. C number 3 is about cooking, cook things properly at the right temperature, check. Reheat things properly. C number 4, avoid cross-contamination, like washing your hands, using different chopping boards, different color chopping boards, not using same towel for everything, cleaning and disinfection to avoid cross-contamination. So these are the 4 C's. And management, which is very, very important. The employer, the manager, they have to supervise, manage, provide information, instruction to employees, and training as well, making sure that everyone has sufficient knowledge of food safety so that they can provide safe food for their consumers.
Now that we have you, I mean, we have a trainer right here. I mean, he is literally the consultant of trainers. I mean, he is the master of trainers. Let me get that correct. So please tell us about the 5 Ps, because there's 5 Ps as well, right?
Well, yes, 4 Ps, I would say. So all these contaminants or the hazards come from 4 sources, basically. So they are like P number 1, they come from personal, person.
Yeah.
So the staff, for example, that's why personal hygiene is very important. They come from premises, place. So that is why place got to be cleaned and disinfected, which is both for COVID-19 as well as for other issues. P number 3 is for pest. When we say pest, we are talking about mice, cockroaches, infestation. They can bring viruses and diseases into the business, so we need to control that. And fourth P is pets, dogs and cats. We need to make sure that they are not coming into our food premises, especially, except a guide dog for a disabled person, for example. So those 4 Ps. So 4 Ps to control 4 hazards: physical hazards, chemical hazards, microbiological hazards like bacteria, virus, including COVID-19, and mold, and allergen. So these are the 4 hazards, and chemical hazards. These are the 4 things we need to make sure that they are not contaminating our food. So that we follow these 4 Cs so that our food is safe, our premises is safe, and we can get 5-star and we can make money. And we are all happy, customers are happy.
Thank you.
It should be visually very, very nice as well. That's what Hokpai said, that visual, when customers come, they do not see everything inside.
Of course.
They see visually. If they see nice and clean, everything disinfectant in the right places, staff, they are very nicely uniformed, nice and clean. That visual check, very important for customers as well.
Maybe the social media side, like you were saying, that it wouldn't be a bad idea, would it, for people to be making little ones at the back of the kitchen and showing them that they are working very cleanly and safely, and just to give people that bit of a confidence boost perhaps in that way.
Absolutely.
Good thing
concern.
it's free.
Absolutely.
It doesn't cost you anything.
Yes.
You just have to be creative, that's all. And brave like you too, Ajul. Yes. I agree with that.
Well, we just had a lovely training session right here from London Training Centre's CEO. So thank you very much for that. We really appreciate that. If I could come to Tafazzal and ask you, I mean, I've just heard,
so much information.
So much information. There was a lot to take in. How do you make sure that your staff are actually following these?
To be blank and straightforward, safety must be the number 1 issue if you're running a business. There is no compromise. There's no room to compromise. In fact, when I employ the person first time in the interview, I make sure I give them every confidence that your safety in my premises and my customers' safety in my premises is my responsibility. So safety has to be taken seriously. Whether it's in the front of the house, like, for example, breaking a glass, how do you take it? Don't use your hand. Slippery is a number 1 hazard. So how do you deal with it? And we know nowadays, where is there blame, there is a claim. So when there is a slippery, when there is wet on the floor, you sort of cool off that area, put the slippery board there, and you make sure one staff is there, standby, while you get, whether it's mop or tissue, to clean it. It's just an example. In the kitchen, where is the washing area, make sure you have some plastic floor, non-slippery. And especially, most important things is training your staff in terms of using the machinery stuff, including the the blenders. Lifting is a major one for the staff. They break their back. If you don't train them, don't bend your back, bend your knee and lift. These are the small things makes the difference. But importantly, I go as far as this. I tell my staff, the only one time you can upset my customer is when it comes to a question of safety and customer. So that's how important safety is. And we have to take it as a business people, and running a prudent business and a professional business, safety and hygiene has to be number 1.
Absolutely.
I mean, this program you can carry on for 4 hours and we can still keep going, explaining about safety and hygiene and what have you. But the important and earnest lies on the management, supervisors and the owners. And if they don't take the initiative and if they don't do the training and keeping the record is your passport. So if an incident happens, you make a record of it. The important thing is what you're doing so that it doesn't happen again. Absolutely. And that is your passport. The environmental health department will come and see this, assess, check what you've done, and they will say, okay, you've done the right thing, but this shouldn't happen again. They might give you a light warning, but the important thing is keeping the record as well.
Thank you very much. And we're actually going to talk more about safety measures and government compliances in the next segment. Let's go check out. I have a short clip for you as well straight after right now to tell you a little bit about health and safety.
The point I would like to raise is SFBB folder, the white folder, is not completed on a regular basis. I've seen premises that haven't completed the folder for months and some for many years. Opening closing checks haven't been done. Please make sure your food management safe system is complete on a regular basis. Another point I would like to raise is the allergen issues. Again, many restaurants that I'm starting to visit now don't have allergen matrix or allergen training as well as signage. High risk of cross-contamination. People are using the same spoon for nuts, etc. So again, these kind of things you can't do.
Both food safety and health and safety are very important for every restaurant. If you do not have this kind of due diligence, a sub-system in place, then you not only damage your reputation or lose your customers and business, but also your restaurant might be closed down, you might be fined and imprisoned, and both.
For health and safety and food safety in a restaurant, it's most important to follow the legislation. Train all staff in health and safety and food safety, and regularly update the staff. Very important that they're regularly updated, that they understand sanitisation, they understand cleaning procedures, and they understand how to store food safely.
It's not that difficult for us to maintain that, and I'm sure it wouldn't be difficult for you guys. It's simply the fact that every single staff has to be adequately trained, and they should at least read the SFBB book once when they come into employment with yourself. And the manager and the chef, the person responsible, must be doing in and out everyday checklist, and that will adhere to the clean schedule and all that stuff, which will be also maintained altogether. If this all is maintained and all the procedures are in place and all the signage and making sure staff are fully aware about the training, then when it comes to the inspector, it will be more or less straightforward for the person to carry out the examination.
We take our food safety quite seriously. I think everybody should as well. Example, food allergens is very, very important. So we train our front of house staff about food allergens. Example, before they take order, they should ask each and every single customers if they have any sort of allergens. This is very, very important because most of the people these days have some sort of allergens, and if a customer was to eat at your restaurant and they had a reaction, it was not going to look good at your business. It doesn't look good for your reputation. Also, we train our back and front about food hygiene. We give them level 2 course. We refresh it every year, and obviously we take the temperatures. We label our foods in terms of when they will expire and when they should be used by.
In recent years, stringent food safety standards and regulation has been established to ensure that all food produced in catering and hospitality sector is safe for consumption. Health and safety and food hygiene regulations are vitally important to ensure the safety of our customers, our staff, and more importantly, the reputation of our business. We at Silka, which is based in the historic Borough Market in London Bridge, has to adhere to a much more stringent set of regulations that has been established by the market authorities, which goes far beyond the Food Standard Agency's regulations. So how do we maintain this? Training, monitoring, retraining of staff.
There you have it, lots of great advice from the masters themselves. And of course, we will find out more about this topic straight after a quick break. In the meantime, please go get yourself a nice cup of tea or your dinner and sit near your telly. We're going to go on a quick break and send in those messages at Catering Circle. I'll see you in a bit.
Catering Circle. In partnership with Purple Eye Technologies, in association with Meridian Grand and sponsored by MR Printers, RCI, Regency Events, iTech Boss, Prestige and DineNet.
Welcome back to the Catering Circle, and we are still on a segment 2 where we are talking all things about government guidelines and about safety measures that you need to have in place in your restaurants. So I'm going to come, actually I'll come straight to you, Vince. Actually, I was thinking, who do I go to for a second? I'll come to Vince now. Vince, tell me a little bit about government checklists. I mean, are there any checklists that they really need to follow or things that they need to look out for restaurants?
In food safety?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, we have to work to the HACCP system, so hazard analysis, critical control points. Again, all about our temperature control and all about how our cross-contamination, our cooking, our chilling, again, back to the 4 Cs. Yeah, and again, there's lots of stuff there that you can use. There's HACCP packs that you can get from Safer Food, Better Business, I think, of HACCP packs. Yeah, and there's, again, quite... If you can do a course as well, do a course, definitely. And then just make sure that somebody's taking responsibility in the team to train the other members of the team. And another thing, I mean, we could talk for hours about how hospitality and how we change staff all the time with the situation with staff and everything else. But, you know, you got to make sure that those new staff are trained in your systems and how you are doing things. That's very important.
How... With regards to the kitchen and, you know, staff being in the kitchen, how can we actually make sure that they're following the food safety guidelines?
Yeah, so you got to...
Because you're talking about changes, staff changes. So how do we make sure that a restaurant or an owner is up to date with the training for their staff members? Or is there any tips that you could share?
I guess you got to make sure you're always up to date and you know what's going on. I mean... Apart from Natasha's law, nothing's changed too much. You have to just make sure that you are trained, and definitely, if you're the owner or the manager, you should definitely be going off and doing actual training with the professionals, and then you can lay it down in your own systems all to the rest of the staff, I guess. And also to remember, you will have sometimes front of house could be coming into the kitchen they shouldn't be passing too much of a point there either, but they should understand exactly what's happening as well with the back of house and should be trained in everything to do with HACCP and food safety compliance.
Thank you. I'm going to go straight to Ashraf and ask Ashraf, yourself, I mean, are you, when we talk about Natasha's law, what does that mean to you and for other restaurants around you? Sorry, you're on mute at the moment. Could you kindly unmute yourself?
Okay, your guests have highlighted a lot of the important issues in terms of the procedures that the employer and the employees need to follow. And it's really important. Obviously, we come back and Safer Food, Better Business, you know, I mean, the folder itself is... It gives a clear indication, and from the environmental health, you know, I mean, it shows you that you need to record. I think record, you know, I mean, information on that booklet is extremely important. And I think, you know, in terms of following, you know, checklists as well. I think in terms of the plan we've set in our establishment, it is have a clear plan. You need to make sure, you know, what needs to be cleaned and by whom. And I think that kind of information, and set a clear schedule of time table as well. And it's really important, I think, it's like getting the employees on training courses as well. I think that needs to be recorded as well on the booklet. Make sure they're doing the work safely, because, you know, I think sometimes they go onto these courses sometimes, but they come back and they get back to the old habits. But you need, as an employer, you need to remind them, have regular staff meetings as well, because it's really, really important that we do these kind of checks, and we need to have a clear records on allergen record, you know, when we have the staff training as well. And we've also have a pack, you know, as your guests have said earlier on, like staff training record, employee medical questionnaires, you know, cleaning schedule, staff sickness records. I think we need to, you know, go with these as well, and make sure that the products that we get from our suppliers, make sure that they have the right temperature, they're coming in fresh as well. So we do have a duty under the Act of 1974, health and safety as well. We have to ensure we keep our staff safe as well as our customers as well. I think that's really important.
Thank you very much. Thank you for that in-depth information. Abdulhaq, if I could ask you about, you know, you as an IT person, as an IT specialist, and especially about the EPOS system, which you know and you understand, and, you know, we speak to our restaurants to, you know, we advise them to go for an EPOS system, right? How can we use these EPOS systems to help us when it comes to allergens or risk assessments? Does it have any connection?
EPOS system simply doing whatever the data you have for your menu, and then thereon, once the data is there, it does all sorts of accounting systems and stock control and other features. The most important thing you notice is the allergen and the Natasha law, which very easily can be implemented on EPOS. A lot of the current features, for example, modifier, like you want to change extra chili, extra hot, you know, that kind of thing. You can reprogram your EPOS system just by using the modifier, which is a very cost-effective way to do it. Get a list of allergen and make sure, no nuts, no this, no that, the major 14 allergen. You can type those in and set it up. Obviously, if you had a very if you go bigger restaurant, all the software company, including our company, they all do bespoke development. But obviously, it costs money to train, upgrade the software, everything else. So if the restaurant is bigger and can afford it, they could also get the bespoke solution, which is against individual item. They can ask a prompt question, and the allergen list will come, and those can select multiple choices, and will print out. It will even print the label for the customer. So it all depends on how the boss want to get this done, but the features are all available. There is a workaround features that they can use without investing any money, tweaking their existing setup, like the modifier I mentioned. Yeah. Or they could go the bespoke solution, which is available, but maybe cost a bit of money for upgrading. But it's not too much. A lot of the companies very reasonable with the upgrade software and so on. As you mentioned, EPOS, but the other issues is a lot of restaurant got the water online where they need to deal with allergen. Now, a big company, Uber Eats, Just Eat, and others. It's quite complicated because if you don't update your menu or you forgot one item, say you do a few hundred items of menu in our restaurants, especially our restaurants, we're looking with combination 300 plus. So you forget one menu item with the allergen, you get in trouble. Or customer forgot, or the software not working. So a lot of the trend is currently going on with water online is they'll make sure they make enough comments, especially whether that if you got an allergen of any of the menu items, please contact restaurant directly and deal with it that way. And that's one way of solving the problem, because you need to make sure that you've got a manager in place or the one person to deal with the kitchen as well, and the EPOS system ready to handle with that. But if you do nothing, at some point you're going to make mistakes, and the price is very hefty to pay. And it's not just that; it's ethical reason. It's life concern. People are allergic to certain things, especially if they report to you, and your business are not capable of dealing with that. At the end, there is prosecution involved, customer laws, newspaper. We had so many stories in Birmingham and other people. In fact, there's someone been jailed for that. Yeah. And Natasha Law came from a 15-year-old person girl died because of allergens. So we have to take this seriously and make sure the setup is there. And you have to do your best to make sure it's been delivered from the restaurant front end to the kitchen and to the customer itself.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much for that. I'm going to go straight to Jan, please. And if I could ask Jan, because I think you've spoken about some things that are really important about the fact that if we don't follow these procedures, if we don't follow these guidelines, there could be legal implications and, it could actually end up in court. So could you tell us a bit about insurances that could actually protect staff and businesses when it comes to health and safety that restaurants may not be aware of or that they definitely need to get?
Well, first of all, the same as Dave said about the fire risk assessments, if you've got more than 5 employees, then you must have a written health and safety policy in place. From our point of view, as an insurance broker, obviously you need to make sure you've got proper insurance in place with a real insurer. We actually came across a bogus insurer the other day within the community, unfortunately. We've got him closed down. But the thing is, it's all about, as previously mentioned, documentation. So make sure that your policies are kept up to date and you keep a record of them. Okay? So, every Sunday, most restaurants do a thorough clean of their restaurants, and the staff are together, have a meeting, document whatever is wrong. So, if you notice that one of the stair carpets may be a little bit loose or something, document it. As long as you document it and you've got a policy in place, if there's a claim and you're insured correctly, the insurance company will defend you. Okay, that is the whole point of having insurance. So, God forbid somebody does have an allergen and a reaction. If you've taken the necessary steps, if your menus are up to date, I think also there's a new law, Owen's law, where they're saying rather not only relying on the written, all the allergens in your menu, but actually ask at the time of sale, so that when somebody comes into your restaurant, you say to them, look, I just want to highlight the fact that we are pointing out the allergens, and if you're unsure, please ask us. And somebody else said, make sure that you've got somebody that actually understands the allergens. So if a customer asks what is actually in this, make sure that you've got an answer, because we as insurance brokers and insurance companies will do what we can to defend you. But if you haven't got the records, then it's no good.
Thank you very much.
Another question, if I may ask.
Yes, please go ahead.
Would you agree that if you're not up to date with cleaning, including extractor and certificate of gas and electricity every year, your insurance doesn't cover?
That's if you're insured with a bad insurance company. Okay. So if there are a few insurance companies out there that, and we've had this where we've helped people in the past, where they've had a water damage claim, and because they've not had an electrical certificate, they've not dealt with the claim. Okay. Well, I say, we're not there to find fault. We're there to help you. So at the end of the day, what can happen is, yes, we will pay out if somebody has an allergic reaction. And I've had to say that since COVID happened, we've had more claims for allergic reactions or dodgy food poisoning than we've had before. It's unreal, and of course, because people are ordering online or there's lack of staff, and I don't mean that rudely. I mean that, you know, you're relying on, you know, lots of people have been furloughed. It's very difficult to prove one way or the other, but that's why documentation has to be there.
Well,
So
I'm lucky. I'm lucky. I'm not insured with bad
No, of course you're not,
insurance broker. And you know who I'm talking about.
Okay, well, we'll leave it right there. But of course, thank you very much, Jan. And of course, just want to clarify, whoever your insurance broker is, please do make sure you read the terms and conditions properly, your contracts, and of course, get in touch with your insurance brokers to find out just exactly what you are insured for. And if there were any claims or if you have any questions, then please get in touch with them. And there are many insurance brokers out there, so please select them correctly and do your own research. I'm going to come straight to Vince and ask you, I mean, you know, we spoke a lot about allergens and how important it is to actually make sure that we ask customers, or staff members ask customers when they are at the table about allergens, etc. But how do you ask and how do you go about it, and how do you make sure that the staff members are trained on this, because it's such a big area.
Yeah, and it's all about communication again, isn't it? But you know, communication between the kitchen and the front of the house is very important in that way. So you know, if there's specials or anything like that, you've got to have a little meeting before service and make sure that everybody has been communicated and everyone fully understands that the allergen sheet, everything has been ticked and as it should be, that is there at the behind the bar for them, or wherever it is. There might be the waitresses, the waiting staff station, and maybe hung up in the kitchen as well on the pass, so everyone knows exactly what's happening. And then always should be looked at by the manager or the head chef or whatever.
Maybe like have I don't know. This is just me thinking out loudly. Maybe even have posters up in the back and in the front for staff members to follow.
Yeah, I think
like
maybe little posters, reminders of
Yeah.
what you're to do. I mean, we see all of that with washing our hands nowadays, don't we?
Yeah, of course. And
yes.
how to wash your hands, isn't it?
Stick it on a QR code.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I mean, that's probably one thing that's come out of all the COVID thing, is that people are more understanding what's happening with bacteria and disease and everything else. They understand how quick it can spread. I think that's been a good message that's come out of all of this, because it does spread extremely fast. And yeah, but the allergies, again, same thing though. That gentleman was on earlier, where people are using the same spoon for different things in the dry stores maybe, and the nuts are getting in. You know, you have to be completely stored, completely away. A lot of pastry kitchens just avoid nuts altogether as well, so they just don't have them in any of their recipes. Yeah, you really have to separate out the area of the preparation. You know, it's like gluten-free. It only takes like what is it, a 20th in every million, or 1 in every 20 million to have an influence on you.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah, so it's very serious, and you have to make sure that the paperwork is all followed and everything is checked through. So
yeah. And actually, that's something. It's only because I've recently just been to your restaurant at Bayleaf, but I did notice that your staff members were actually asking, "Are you allergic to anything?" And you actually mentioned what was in the ingredients, and I think that's a really, really good tip. For all the restaurants out there.
Yeah, that's one of the important things I've always trained my staff to do. When they enter, sit down, give the menu, ask for the drinks, and when we give out the menu for ordering, we say, do you have any allergy? And if one of the person in the table said, only one delegated staff will take the order. Yeah. And he will communicate with the kitchen staff and get the chef to sign it as well.
Brilliant.
That he was notified that this number customer is allergic to nuts, or the 14 allergen at the moment.
Excellent, thank you very much. And actually, again, I think that's a really good tip, because as Jan mentioned, just make sure you have your paperwork, you have everything there, because all insurance brokers are there to help you.
Absolutely.
And if you make that easier for them. If you're following all the guidelines and procedures, then of course you do have your legs to stand on. Which
and
is
when once you have the system in place, it works itself. It's so easy. You don't have to make it complicated.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Thank you. Vince, I know we're about to go on a break and I know you're going to have to leave us today. But before you leave, if I could kindly ask you to share your top tips for our restaurateurs out there watching today.
I mean, yeah, again, just communication is a big part of it, I think. I would definitely look at maybe doing a little bit to give people more confidence, doing a bit on social media about recording how the back of your kitchen is, maybe letting people have a little insight into it. And that shouldn't be anything scary because everything should be all following proper guidelines and everything else. And just I think that there's plenty of stuff out there. Do look online. There is a lot of free resources available, especially through gov.uk. And just talk to your other colleagues as well and other restaurateurs that you probably network with and stuff. Everyone they probably have better insights for what you're exactly, depends on what kind of area of trade you're in, I suppose. And if you're talking within your network, you'll definitely be able to help you out.
Well, thank you very much for joining us today. We really appreciate your time and all your advice. Thank you very, very, very much. That's it, really. We're going to go on a quick break and we'll be back with a new topic.
Catering Circle. In partnership with Purple Eye Technologies, in association with Meridian Grand and sponsored by MR Printers, RCI, Regency Events, iTech Boss, Prestige and DineNet.
Still talking all things about safety in the restaurant industry, and of course with me I have some great guests. But I'm going to go first to Dave, who's been with us for a very long time. And Dave, if I could come straight to you, and firstly apologise because you've been waiting for a very long time, but ask you to elaborate on risk assessments when it comes to the health and safety of restaurants. Is Dave there? Yay, there you are. Dave, can you hear me?
Yes. Yeah, I
yes,
can.
Thank you. If I could ask you, when it comes to auditing premises and when it comes to health and safety in the restaurants, what is it that they really need to look out for, and what advice would you give to these restaurateurs?
Well, the most worrying thing is the lack of documentation. Things like fire risk assessments, staff training records, procedures. It's a common failing. It's certainly something we can help with. If you go to most fire and rescue service websites, we offer webinars where we can talk people through the requirements and the process.
And is there anything where those that are in this field and need a bit more advice or need a bit more help about understanding the audit process, is there anywhere you could direct them to, somewhere they could go maybe?
Yeah, for sure. As I said, most counties offer quite a lot of advice. If you go to the Hampshire and Isle of Wight Fire and Rescue Service website, there's a monthly webinar. There's also a facility where you can contact a fire safety inspector like myself and ask a question. It's a difficult process, the road to compliance. And I think for a small business, it's very difficult to be an expert on everything, but you need help.
And it's important to have that training in place. Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely. From staff training to competency in completing a fire risk assessment or writing a simple procedure for your staff to follow if there's a fire.
Thank you very much. Ash, if I could come to you and ask you, I mean, a 5-star restaurant for 12 consecutive years, how have you been following these procedures? What have you got in place that you could share with us?
I have pretty much everything in place because I have gone on training sessions with my local EHO. We made sure that all the systems that we talked about today, we have everything in place. And we regularly check that and make sure that all systems are up to date.
And how do you make sure that your staff are aware of these legal requirements and that they are also following procedure? Because something that Dave just mentioned, which I thought was really good, that you can't do everything. You can't be everywhere and you can't talk on behalf of your staff. So how do you make sure when you're not there, your staff members are following those procedures?
So we have an iCloud system in place where we have regular reminders. For example, like the fire safety. The fire safety is an annual requirement every year. We make sure that is implemented. We use the local companies and we use the same company. So we know that we have a regular reminder on our phone and our online system as well. So it's regularly informed us on a quarterly basis. And we're making sure that all legislation is covered.
Thank you very much. I know we've spoken a lot about health and safety in the past couple of minutes, but I think we need to come back a little bit about food safety. We've spoken about allergens, we've spoken about how important that matter is when customers come into your restaurant. When they walk through that door, it is your responsibility to find out if they have any allergens and how you can cater to that customer's needs. So we've spoken about that, but actually I'm going to ask Ashraf now a little bit about food safety and about cleaning, actually, because I think that's quite an important thing, especially with COVID. You know, what strategies are in place when it comes to cleaning and disinfecting your workplace, your area?
I think, obviously, you know, I mean, cleaning is really important, obviously, due to, obviously, COVID and in general, I think having a clean kitchen, making sure the staff are aware of the cleaning schedule, you know, I mean, who's doing what, who's cleaning what, having a rota. I think it's very clear. And I think if we put that on the kitchen, you know, I mean, where it's easily displayed, and gives the responsibility for the main head chef, I think he needs to take a lead and ensure his staff are cleaning and using the disinfectant wherever necessary. And I think doing that and also documenting these as well and making sure that in terms of the allergen, I think somebody said earlier on, it's important to have a kind of poster in the kitchen because it gives a reminder to all staff that when they're using anything in terms of the 14 allergens of the law, they then need to be careful and somebody needs to take responsibility on that. And I think it's having a regular staff meetings is really, really important, I think. And it shows that, you know, the cleaning is up to date, really. And I think it needs to be monitored regularly. It's like a good worker is wherever you finish off, make sure your work surface is clean at all times.
Thank you.
That's how we have to do. I think it's important.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. We're having just a few technical issues there. That's the world of technology. But thank you very much, Ashraf, for your advice on that and for the information. I'm going to come straight to Tafazzoli and ask you, I mean, we've spoken about how important it is to clean the surface and the workplace and have posters, etc. in place. But something that Jan mentioned about insurance, you know, things are changing now. There's so much food home delivery.
Oh, yeah.
How do you make sure that you are following safety measures there? Because you are doing something in your restaurant, but then it's going to a third party, right? So how do you make sure that when you are packing your food and trusting this third company to take it to your customer, how do you make sure that you are following procedure, that you have followed everything when it comes to COVID cleaning guidelines?
Well, I don't know. It's a very difficult one, you know, because end of the day, you come onto a third-party platform in your own earnest. And bottom line is you have to trust them because they have a job. You do your part, which is take the order, prepare, pack it, and hand it over to the driver, third party, if you're using the third-party driver. You can always tell them, be careful how you deliver. And during the COVID, the one thing everybody did, I think, on delivery particularly, is contactless. So what they did is put it on the doorstep, the package, and knock on the door and step back 2 meters until they open the door, they take the package. And the payment nowadays is, I think, 99% contactless as well as online. So that side of the thing is done. But the important thing, I think, which you don't have control, is when the driver is transporting your good. And that's where there are a lot of confusion and challenges and complaints, to my knowledge, comes. And then the third party starts passing the buck to you, and you say, no, we package it to the highest possible standard and the safetiest possible way. It can't happen. So it's a challenge, really, and it's going backward and forward. The best thing to do is not to use the third party, which I don't use, you know.
Okay, so
but
you
then
have your
again,
own delivery service.
Yeah, I don't. In my restaurant, we don't do takeaways, but I have a takeaway separate, entire different entity, and we do use them. But yeah, we have to sort of work with both parties and try and do our best. Play your part. Tell them, look, we're an establishment with reputation. Please take it carefully, do it due diligence, and hope for the best. Usually, most of the time, it's okay. It's only very rare occasion complaint comes, and you have to deal with it.
Yeah.
When a customer complains, deal with it seriously.
Of course.
Because this is what I say. If there is 10 complaints, and if one is genuine, take the other 9 as well. Take all of them as genuine. Because for one customer, you cannot take the other not genuine. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
So you take everyone in good honesty and try and deal immaculately.
Now, you mentioned something earlier on about safety and about how important it is, and that's the only time you allow your staff members to talk back or, you know, say something to the customers, which is really great to hear because safety is the utmost important thing. So let's talk a little bit about first aid. Do you have a first aid system in your workplace? What is the procedure? What do you have in place?
Well, everybody must have a first aid because accident can happen to your staff as well as customers. So it's a must-have. It's a box, depending on the size of your restaurant and organization and how many people sit. There are different sizes of box. And it has to be left in a visual place where most importantly, all the staff members know that's where the first aid box is. And as manager or supervisor, again, I'm going to go to them. They need to check the content in regular basis, which could be bandages, plasters, and sanitization. Again, if it's a deep cut, you hold it with a bandage, and then you cover them with a bandage until an emergency service comes and helps you. And in kitchens particularly, accident is bound to happen.
Yeah.
And we have to work as a team. The chef is usually the leader of the kitchen. He has to be informative. He has to be cooperative with the other. And information is very important and vital. We know in our Asian restaurant, like Hokbai said, we have so many dishes. And that's what we need to combat. Less is more sometimes. Because you have more dishes, more headache, and more work for the staff. We need to reduce the dishes and try and work. But what I was trying to say is we have gravy, big, gravy pots. And sometimes the safety is overseen. So one person try and lift it. That doesn't work. You need help. Ask your colleague to help you and do it. Machinery stuff, you have to give training, particularly when a new staff joins in. You know, there are certain machinery, for example, the blender. No one under the age of 18 should be allowed to operate. It says there clearly, and that has to be adhered. Again, if you don't adhere all this and you make a claim, you have to prove.
Absolutely.
You know?
Yeah, everything has to be in place.
You could be in trouble. You are the one who's liable for the safety and security of all the member of staff when they're working in your premises.
Absolutely, I totally agree with you. Thank you. I'm going to come to Mr. Hock and ask you if you could elaborate or maybe give us an insight into, are there any government guidelines or any help for these third parties, these delivering companies? Because as you mentioned, as Mr. Mayor mentioned, that all he can do is just give his package and say, here you are, goodbye, thank you, go send that to my customer. But what's in place for these third companies, these delivering services?
It's quite straightforward. As we always said, already said, there hasn't been much changes apart from the recent Natasha law. Contactless just came to in place only because of the COVID. Otherwise, it's a good way of passing the food to the customer, and now people are moving into that. Contactless. I have a delivery man hand it over to me, and then I give him a tip. So things are changing now. Those has been evolved. We are becoming almost the normal life. But the way to look forward is we learned quite a bit and from this COVID, and we got to implement some of the rules, cleaning. If you can do contactless operation, that's fine. But there isn't a government law that you have to go for contactless. It's just for the safety of your own staff and the customer. Nowadays, as I said, it's all about running a normal business, but delegating a lot of the staff, especially training to the professionals, like we've got Habib Bhai here. Sometimes you got to invest a little bit. And I always say, listen, if the return on investment is much higher, saving is your profit, so you're not costing anything. In your brain, you should say, if I spend £500 on training course, all my staff get their confidence, I save from wastage, say £50 to £100 a week, that's £5,000, minus the training cost, I'm still making a profit. It costs me £0. So the boss and owner have to think differently, out of the box, thinking, this is free. The training is free because I'm making a profit on top. And that's the investment they got to do to make everything working. And you got to delegate to professional. You can't be, as I said earlier today, you can't be a Bollywood actor, try to do everything. That happens in movies.
Yeah.
In real life, you can't do everything. You got to have the right people in the right boxes. And sometimes you have to trust people. And I do trust professional people. And that's where people need to invest a little bit in return, to be honest.
Thank you very much. And Abdul Haq Habib, as an expert, when it comes to training, when it comes to giving people knowledge, how would you say restaurateurs need to train their staff on safety measurements?
Okay, thank you very much. Now, just wanted to add one thing about first aid course.
Yes,
there is a requirement that you must have a first aider in place as well. So, of course, first aid kit, information, those kind of things, you must have a qualified first aider in the workplace as well. That's very, very important.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Thank you very much for clarifying that. And coming back to what I asked you, how do we make sure that our staff members are following the government guidelines and following the safety measurements? How would you say they should?
In terms of two things here. Firstly, the employer's responsibility. So they have to do four things basically. Information, provide proper information to members of staff. Provide instruction, so how to do this and follow things. So information, instruction, they must make sure that every single member of staff is trained. Okay. So provided training courses. So the training course include food safety, health and safety, first aid, fire safety. So these are the four topics we are talking about today. And these are the relevant training courses, as Hokpai said very, very nicely, is that profit and loss, or how much you are investing and how much are you gaining. That is why we kept talking about safer food, better business. The safer your food is, the better business you will do, the more profit you will make, basically. That's ultimately, that's what Hokbay is saying, that the more you invest in terms of in training, supervision, you will get return in terms of better business.
Yeah.
Finally, with regards to law, employer, they have to supervise their staff as well. And that supervision includes in terms of health and safety, in terms of food safety, where they're practicing, monitor whether if there are any issues and things like this, and provide if there is any gap, provide support to your members of staff. So in terms of managing the business, it's very, very important that we manage it properly and we lead by example. So the managers or the owner, we have to lead by example. So we have to be practicing those things so that our members' staff can follow our lead, follow our management, follow our instructions and things like this.
Yeah.
It is very, very important that we put that as our top priority.
Absolutely.
Leading that team in a very, very positive way.
Yeah, and I think that's correct, and I think that's very important. And I don't think that's just in the restaurant business, but I think that's in any business, right? As a leader, you need to lead as you would want your staff members to follow. I'm going to go to Ash and ask Ash, I keep mentioning 5 stars for 12 consecutive years because that is a huge success and that is a big thing, so you should be super proud of that. But coming back to you, how do you make sure that your staff members are actually following your lead? Do you have something in place? Do you have like a reward scheme? Do you have some sort of posters or anything? What do you have? Share your tips with us. I think Ash should be there. Ash? Okay, we've lost Ash. I'll come to Ashraf. Ashraf, would you like to share your views on that?
Yeah, thank you very much for that. I think we're also a 5-star business as well. 5-star rated over the last 5 years in a row as well. And I think it's important, as you say, I think we need to trust staff, give them responsibility, and also we need to reward staff as well for doing this kind of thing. I always believe sometimes as an employer, I have to lead from the front. I have to show them in terms of how to lead.
Thank you very much. I'm really sorry we're having a few technical glitches there, but thank you very much for sharing that. And we'll come back to you, hopefully, whilst the technical team sort that out. We are now going to go straight into our third segment, getting everyone's top tips. So I'm going to come straight to Mr. Huck and ask you, what are your top tips when it comes to surviving this food safety and health and safety issue now, post-COVID?
Yeah, the top tips are very simple. You're running a business. As an owner or as a manager, you have responsibility to your customer, to your staff. You can't cut corners. Don't do halfway house because it's going to cost you more over the time. Do the training, because training will gain confidence for your staff and also keep it safe for everyone. Especially if you talk about the cost, saving is your profit, we talked about it. Over the time, we noticed just doing a small training could save you thousands of pounds over the time, especially from food wastage, customer confidence, and especially from the kitchen. So I would say do the training, do the basics. So nothing has changed much. Run your business as normal as possible, and change your menu, because you got to increase your menu price to cover all the changes and all the cost. And this is a great opportunity. And as Tufajjul Bhai say, cut it small. We don't need 300, 400 items. Make it small. Whatever sells in your restaurant, make those happen. Do it properly. It's a time for your menu change where you can make all these allergen changes, the prices changes, and get the food the customer really want.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I really appreciate that. And if I could come to Professor Bhai and ask you, what are your top tips and maybe your survival comments? We're going to start taking the closing comments now for our restaurants out there.
Well, food hygiene, there's 3 important things. Why you're doing it is the law. There is no if that is about it, and you have to follow the guideline. Food poisoning, remember, can kill people, and it does kill people, and it could be an imprisonment if you break the law and somebody dies having your food. It's a very serious matter. And more importantly, your business reputation. You got a 5-star rating, and if you don't maintain it, it's your reputation on the line. I want to give a tip, that is usage of technology, not only in the front of the house, at the back of the house. My aim is to work smarter, not harder. We have to adapt technology.
How? What do you mean by that?
For example, from the oven to, I can only speak from my experience.
Please share with us.
Yeah, I've got rational oven doing most of our cooking. And it's a press of a button. And it costs wastage, and it's consistent, and it's press of a button. It's so good. Usage of dishwasher, usage of onion, the old cutting. It's important. We have to, certain parts, you have to do it in an old way. But there is technology, like you put the onion in the machine, it comes out. A bag of onion you can chop within literally 5 minutes.
Got it.
Yeah.
And I think that's I love that.
Episode,
Yeah.
I mean, pandemic has taught us so many things, and times are difficult because I have to say, staff shortage is genuinely, not only at the Indian restaurant, Asian restaurant, it's in the 5-star hotels. I know, I have information. 5-star hotels managers are preparing rooms. That much of shortage. So use this technology, reduce, if you like me saying, staff, but be prudent. Work hard, smarter, not harder.
Thank you very much. I'm going to come straight to Habiba and ask you to please share your closing comments and some top tips.
Sure. 3 top tips, as this is the third option, third episode, I think. First tip is for every single employee. The employer needs to make sure that every single person has been vaccinated, which is very, very good. Vaccination is the way forward to safeguard us from COVID-19. There's no second option, to be honest. So make sure that everyone is vaccinated, basically. Very important. Number 2 is to safeguard our customers in terms of allergy related, is that make sure every single member of staff has enough knowledge about allergens. And this is a legal requirement as well. Every single member of staff must have enough knowledge about allergy, basically. And thirdly, in terms of safeguarding the business, what we are talking about is safer food, better business. So every single business, you must complete this safer food, better business every single day. This is a legal requirement, and if you do that and if you follow it, practice it, then your food will be safer, and if your food is safer, you'll get 5-star, which is better business. So these are the top tips, one for staff, one for business, and one for customers.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much for those top tips. And lastly, what would you like to add to that?
Well, Habib covered mostly, but as I said, health and safety is very important. Customer needs to feel safe, and one of the most professional way to do it, or cost-effective way to do it, is use the digital world, as Tafajul by already using. Make sure you take some videos of your customers, how you're cooking in the kitchen, get the customer confidence up. and making sure you can use of Twitter or any of the platform you like, Facebook and the others, and communicate with your customer. Always make the communication and be honest about it. Everyone knows we've gone through a big phase of pandemic, and it's about time everything becoming normal. A lot of changes happen, and people understand price increase, and make sure you do your menu, and you got to recover the cost, that extra cost or extra burden on yourself, especially on the VAT and everything else going up. You got to recover that money. And make sure you do the training. It's so important. Training, and as a boss, you need to know your staff. Otherwise, at some point, you lose the confidence over your staff, over the customer, and then you have no business.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. Thank you so much for that. And I'm going to go straight to our Zoom guest today and want to thank you all for joining us. Thank you very much. I know there was a few network issues from Ashraf Bhai, apologies, but thank you so much for joining us and for sharing all your knowledge and your advice. We really, really appreciate it. Thank you once again. That's it really. This is the end of today's episode where we spoke about health and safety and food safety issues. You can watch back today's episode on the app, or you can also watch it on Channel S later on, where they will have a repeat. The next one is all about technology. I'll be back again on Tuesday, the 19th of October, speaking to you about how technology will benefit your restaurant. But for now, it is time for me to say goodbye, but I'll be back soon. Take care.